The travel and tourism industry has been on a good run, and the hope is that things will continue. The momentum, of course, has been built up. And as we look at the new financial year, which has started, we are already seeing signs of the domestic move strengthening further. Of course, international at this point in time a bit uncertain given the escalation of the trade war. Back home, the big story, of course, emerging is Indigo. It has become the world's most valuable airline with its market cap crossing $23 billion. To talk to us about Indigo's aspiration of being India's first global airline is Pieter Elbers. Peter, always a pleasure. Many thanks for joining us here on CNBC-TV18. It's great to have you back on the program. Let's start with India and let's start with domestic travel at this point in time. Still looking very, very strong. As we start this new financial year, I know you can't give us specific numbers because you are in your silent period, but what's the mood in the market at this point in time?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me here today. And it's a pleasure to speak to you always. If we look about the development of the domestic market and we take the most recent published official numbers, and as you said, I cannot give any speculation about today's numbers since we're in that silent period. But for both the month of January and February, the DGCA data was released, and both of them actually had an 11% increase, which basically are very, very good numbers. So there was some slowdown at the beginning of 24, around the election time, there was some slowing down, but actually ever since we can see a very solid demand and a very positive development of that demand.
Well, speaking of demand and speaking of positive developments, I'm just taking a look at the numbers. For your summer schedule, 14,158 weekly flights. That's much higher than the 13,050 flights last summer.
Yeah, we keep adding and we keep growing. And for the financial year which is past, we announced a early double-digit growth. We have actually the same outlook for the next year. And for an airline of our size, today we operate a little short of 2,300 flights a day. If you think about that, take a step back, we're welcoming every 3 days 1 million customers. By the time this interview is over, we have welcomed another 7,000. So it just shows that the numbers are there and the numbers continue to grow. So our ambition really is to double towards the end of the decade. That's a long-term projection. But in the meantime, we keep adding these numbers.
Well, speaking of adding numbers, it's what, a plane a week at this point in time? That's the run rate that you're working with?
Yeah, that is still the runway. I mean, the last year, 24, we received 58 aircraft. And, I think it gives a lot of pride to everyone at Indigo and probably India also. The single largest taker of planes on the world, not the region, but the world, was Indigo. So here we are, an 18-year young Indian airline taking the highest number of plane deliveries from anywhere in the world, 58 planes. That means more than one a week we had last year. And our ambition is actually to continue that growth path well into the next decade.
Well, I know it doesn't directly impact Indigo, but let me ask you about what you make of China's decision not to order Boeing jets any longer. We don't know whether that will eventually happen or not, but how do you see that development?
That entire discussion today around the tariffs and that US China development, especially when it comes to aircraft. I think the world today is in need of having multiple suppliers when it comes to aircraft, and clearly Boeing and Airbus being the two largest. So I would assume that the resolution is found one way or the other at that point in time.
Well, speaking of finding a resolution for the capacity constraints that you're faced with, you are continuing to lease aircraft. You've just leased 4 more from Norsail. What's the plan on that front, especially as you have these big global ambitions?
Well, the Indian market is growing at a great rate. Despite our large order book, still some of the global supply chain challenges are really affecting us when it comes to delivering the capacity. So ever since this started to occur 3 years ago, we have taken a whole range of mitigating measures in terms of extending leases, getting temporary planes, doing some damp leases. All these things have really helped us to live up to our capacity guidance. Now we have ordered the wide bodies, so we have 27. The first wide bodies are coming in, and actually we don't want to wait for that. So as a bridging until that time, we started to damp lease 787s from Norsail.
So does this give me a sense that the decision to not wait for the wide bodies and actually go in for leases is a way for you to accelerate and speed up your international expansion plans?
It surely is. The market is there. A lot of Indian travelers today don't have the opportunity to travel either direct or travel on an Indian operator. I think by us providing that capacity, there's an opportunity for people to start flying direct, or to, we have announced Manchester is going to be the first direct connection from Delhi into Manchester. That's great, both for the people in Delhi and actually India, and the people in Manchester. Amsterdam is the other destination we'll be starting adding, and there's more to come. And
so what more can we expect, at least as far as this financial year is concerned? How many more destinations do you intend to add?
Well, we will have the number of Norse planes going up from 1 to 4 in this year. We will start with the XLR. That's a very important development for Indigo. That will allow us to further stretch the range. We haven't disclosed yet which destination, which number, but let me share the following number with you to get a bit of an indication. When I joined Indigo 3 years back, we had like 25-ish international destinations. Today we're 40. And Fujairah has been announced as number 41. So that is in a time span of less than 3 years.
You've doubled.
We pretty much doubled.
Yeah.
And of course, there's an end to, you cannot endlessly double it. But India was so largely underserved, and the demand for the Indian consumers, ranging it from Karabi in Thailand to the Middle East to Europe, is just massive.
So coming back to specifics now, in terms of your international ambitions, because when we last spoke, you said you want to make Indigo India's global airline. So in the near term, what does that mean in terms of the number of people that you will fly on your international operations? What does that also mean in terms of your margins and change of margin profile?
The Indigo International Network, Shereen, is started some years back, very traditional, if you wish, between India and the Gulf and the Middle East countries. We've been slowly expanding that. So in 23, we started flights into Central Asia. We started flights into Nairobi. We have moved, and I had a meeting earlier this week with the CEO of Changi Airport. We moved from moving into Singapore from 3 Indian cities to 9 today. But that's still within that 5 to 6 hour radius. I think the next step for Indigo is to make sure that even Europe and further parts of Asia would be accessible, directly operated by Indigo. And, if India is going to be the third largest economy in the world by 27, the country needs and deserves actually an airline of the size and scale and potential of the nation.
So what is the indication and the timeline that you're working with in terms of the wide-body deliveries because of the backlog that we're dealing with?
Just some numbers here. Today, we have ordered 30 wide bodies. The delivery start from 27. We don't want to wait for that. That's why we have the temporary bridging. We used to have around 25% of our available seat kilometers international. This year, we're reaching 30, and we've put a projection out there to move that percentage up to 40%. So the foundation of who we are as Indigo will remain strongly and deeply rooted in India. We operate a little short of 500 routes in India itself, direct city pairs. That's the foundation of who we are, and that continue to be. Out of that 500, pretty much half of them are unique. So that provides suddenly air connectivity, connecting the nation, giving wings to the nation. But on top of that, that international dimension is being built. And 40% is the number which we put out there. 40%
is the number. We're still waiting for your results to be announced, which will be sometime in May. So you can't give us specifics, but the street is working with estimates as far as what profitability for you could look like. It's been 9 quarters on the trot, with the exception of 1 quarter of positive bottom line for you. At this point in time, given where crude prices are and have come up very, very sharply, as well as demand, you're looking at significant tailwinds, I would imagine, aren't you?
Well, I think in another configuration, one would call that a leading question. So as you rightfully pointed out, we're in a silent period, so I cannot give any indication of guidance.
Don't talk to me about numbers. But
looking back to what we have done, and I'm very proud what the Indigo teams really have achieved. In middle of 22, we were exiting from COVID, and I remember joining at that point in time. We made a sort of small profit, but it was very meaningful because it was actually, the dark days of COVID were behind us, and we started to emerge from that. And ever since, we have been building not only our network, our customer proposition, our profiling, but actually creating the margins to start investing in the future of the company. If you want to become a global airline, we should have a service, IT, digital tools, all centered around that.
So what does that mean in terms of investments over the next few years, whether it's on IT, we know what it is going to cost you as far as the aircraft is concerned, but, just building out the ecosystem to be able to deliver to the promise that you just articulated, what will it mean in terms of investments?
Well, there's going to be serious investments, and obviously fleet is the largest part of it. Next to fleet, it's people. This is the training center, and really very important part of Indigo is the people we have. It's also very much all our investments in digital. We start to invest heavily in AI. We were a bit behind that, but if India is home, we should invest to that, and we should actually lead that. So we have our own sort of AI center now building and working.
Is there a number, that you can share in terms of what you've invested so far on AI?
I don't have a number of crores, but it's multiple crores. Obviously, we're investing in that. And last but not least, it's not only our own investment, but also partnerships. So as recent as last week, we signed up a big partnership with Accor. So it's the first of its kind in India. And basically what we will be having now, that all our blue chip members can start using their points in staying in Accor hotels. And Accor members can using their points in flying Indigo. Accor is present in all our 40 international destinations. So what does it mean for an Indian consumer? You fly a lot domestic, you use your points to either fly with us international or have your hotel in Bangkok or Dubai or Singapore, wherever you go, and use the Accor hotel.
So, Accor is one of the partners that you've signed up as far as the Blue Chip loyalty program is concerned. I just saw that you announced a partnership with Swiggy today as well. So, as you look at building out this partnership ecosystem, what should we look forward to next?
I think the philosophy here is we'll have a couple of leading partners in different spaces, and building an ecosystem is exactly what the word is. So it will have, Accor is clearly such a great global hotel brand that we sign up with that one, and then probably we have a couple of smaller ones. Swiggy is a very different notion, but also helping us to build that ecosystem, and especially in the high speed of India. The speed of having partners adding it, that I think Indigo is very well placed to participate in that boom.
Let's talk about Indigo Stretch, which is, of course, the business class offering and part of the premiumization strategy as far as Indigo is concerned. What's the response been like? I mean, you launched in November, so it's well over 6 months at this point in time. You've gone from Delhi now to Mumbai, Chennai, Bangalore. What can we expect in terms of Indigo Stretch?
Yeah. Maybe first to address one point. You said the premiumization strategy. I wouldn't call it the premiumization strategy. What we have is that very foundation. So we have a little short of 500 domestic routes. We'll have 10 out of those 500 having this stretch product. So we're basically adding a product on top of what we have. And then even on those 10 routes, if we take Delhi, Mumbai, there's 20 flights a day. There's a plane has 220 seats, 12 of them are premium, and all the rest is economy. But it's very important for us because it starts to prepare for the next phase for international, start to prepare for our corporates. Delhi, Mumbai was the first route to start. That one has been received very, very well. The reviews we get on social media from customers, emails, whatever, is very, very positive. It's a tailor-made product. Yeah. It's very much geared to what we have. For example, we have now all these flights there and people just love it. So Delhi, Mumbai is doing well. It started, it's in full operation. Delhi, Bangalore is just recently completed its full 14 daily flights are now all being accommodated. We have Chennai launched and Hyderabad is the next one to be on the list.
Yeah, and so the planes that you're getting in, the one a week that comes in, all will have these 12 stretch seats.
Yes, Shereen. So we have taken a decision to have 45 of these aircraft with stretch. We started in November last year, each and every plane. So pretty much every Monday a new plane comes in, sometimes on Friday. But we have these planes coming in, and every new plane comes in, we put it on the route immediately. So the actually the incubation period, if you want to call it like that, for us is like 12 months, and then all these routes should be in operation, which is incredible speed.
With speed and efficiency, and let's talk about efficiency and where you believe you can draw out more efficiency at this point in time to try and give you a further bump up as far as margins are concerned. I mean, you continue to be the market leader, well over 60% share at this point in time. What else do you believe that you can do to squeeze out more from the business to juice it out even further?
I think Indigo has developed and optimized its processes in a formidable way. The 3-point disembarkation, the turnarounds of planes, the efficiency of the processes. In an environment where sometimes capacity constraints, airports in renovation, air traffic control. So it's the weather, it has a lot of challenges. Despite that, I think Indigo has optimized that. So that's where small innovations like adding a third ramp is helpful. I think the next breakthrough really is going to be in the field of digital, where a lot of information to our customers could be further digitized, could be further optimized. Self-rebooking tool, if there's bad weather, why should we rebook your flight? You may want to do it yourself. You choose yourself. So there's a lot of these processes in the works where we really believe that that's the next level of optimization.
Let's talk about some of the regulatory challenges that perhaps could be on the anvil. We've once again seen the parliamentary panel recommend the possibility of looking at intervening in the market as far as prices are concerned. We've now got the government setting up a special cell where customers can actually talk about their complaints as far as pricing is concerned. Would you worry about the possibility of government intervention on pricing at this point in time?
Well, when there's a body where customers can complain about certain things, I think that's a good thing. There's always good for companies to have a body which keeps sort of things in balance and things. So I think in general, to have a body like that is a good thing. Having said that, looking at the Indian market, it's one of the most, if not the most competitive market in the world. The average price levels are extremely competitive. There has been some recent reports which made a comparison. How did inflation go over the years and how did airfares go? And actually you could see that the inflation has gone much faster than the airfare. So we need to catch up in that in efficiency and sort of in order to keep the margins. Because in the long run, there must be a correlation between the cost of doing business and the price of airfares, right? Otherwise you'll be out of business. I think this is some part of the history of aviation in India. Last and very importantly, if we want to build global aviation giants in India, we should also look at what's the global dimension and global dynamics we're playing in and what type of airlines and size of airlines we need for that. So a good thing that the body is there. We fully support and we're fully transparent on that. When it comes to average prices, it is one of the most competitive markets in the world. Yes, there's peaks, but so is that in hotels. And let's look at it more from a global level rather than at the specific domestic route.
But has there been any conversation with the government on this issue?
There's permanent conversations. If there's questions, there's conversations, right? And I don't think...
I would imagine that you got a lot of calls during the Mahakumbh.
No, as an airline, we should never shy away from those conversations. And when there are certain prices which, if there's one ticket which has, 40,000 rupees on the route, that are occasions, sometimes these systems push up the prices. I think the real discussion for the Mahakumbh is when it became clear that there was so much demand, we pretty much doubled the number of flights we had. If you've been to Prayagraj airport, it's not a very large airport. So I think the collaboration between the airport, the air traffic control, the authorities, ourselves, to put in all these additional flights, that worked out very, very well. And then, yes, there's a lot of chatter about, there was someone booking a flight in the south of India, connecting over Delhi and Hyderabad. But let's park that for a minute. Let's look what we have collectively achieved in making sure that all these people could travel there. I was one of them.
You were? How many people did you fly to the Mahakumbh?
I think we operated close to 1,000 flights. There's 230 seats per flight. So that pretty much back and forth. So that's what, 5 lakh in and out together.
Yeah.
a very rough estimate.
But staying with possible regulatory challenges, I mean, there was a pushback from industry on the change as far as flying norms are concerned for pilots and the crew. Now the norms are expected to kick in July, the new FDTL norms. What will that mean? I mean, I don't know whether they will or won't. As of now, they're slated to come out in July. What will that mean in terms of operations and your turnaround times?
No. Safety for us is of paramount importance, and clearly it's important to continuously review all these rules which are related to that. What we also find important, let's take some of the best practices of other parts of the world as well, include these best practices in the discussion. Some other countries or continents have gone through a long phase of growth and development. India's aviation is actually taking off now, so I think it's a great opportunity really to incorporate some of these learnings. So the fact that the entire discussion on FDTL is starting and should be a very mature discussion, because there's no dispute on the importance of safety. Everyone fully subscribed to that. As it stands now, that 1st of July is there, and we're in the process of evaluating and detailing what exactly does it mean at what point in time.
Will you need to hire more? July is not very far away. If those norms kick in, will you need to hire more?
July is not very far away, but still, again, we're reviewing what's going to be the precise impact, what possible ways of network alignment, and it has a lot of elements linked to night flying. What does it exactly mean? Should the network be changed? Should we stop some of the flights in the night? Could also be a consequence. So I think even there it's a holistic picture, and I think India at large has benefited a lot from the development of aviation. I think it's important that we sort of keep that momentum, and of course against the backdrop of safety first.
User development fee being hiked across majority of the major airports, whether it's Mumbai or Delhi. Do you believe that's likely to impact travel demand? How do you see that affecting the sector?
Well, that's a fine balance. I think a lot of the investments which are taking place in airports today are great investments, and probably we're really up to those investments. And I think with that, some of the airports in India are now world-class airport facilities. And again, we need that. The country needs to have world-class airport facilities. If we want to be a global aviation hub, hubs are created by airlines, but can only be created in close collaboration and working together with airports. So that's what we need. Having said that, looking at the price sensitivity, a few hundred of rupees sometimes is enough to have people flying or not flying. So we should be mindful of looking how these user fees will eventually find their way into ticket prices. Because at the end of the day, there's a correlation between what is the price and the cost price of a product, and what is the price for the consumer eventually. So full support for all the changes. I think it's important that it's being done. But we should be mindful that, at the end of the day, the price of the ticket is based on different elements, and this aspect is an important part of that, and that should be in line with it.
Is it in line with what you believe is the kind of threshold, or do you believe it's tipped over?
I think at some points it runs the risk of tipping over. If you take the price of a ticket, the price of some of the UDFs should, in terms of percentage and correlation, should be not too much as the total price of the ticket, right? There's going to be fuel and flying and this and that and the other. So I think, again, full support for all the changes we're making, but we should be mindful of what would it do eventually for the total ticket prices.
You've also got new airports coming up. You've got the new airport coming up in Mumbai. Of course, you've had to move airports here in Delhi. There's Jewar expected, and that's on the anvil as well. In terms of the new airport infrastructure coming in, what does that mean as far as perhaps opportunities, but also adding to the complexity as far as an airline is concerned?
Well, I see it as a big opportunity, and all the large cities in the world, the mega cities in the world, are having 2, 3, or even sometimes more airports. London, Paris, New York, Shanghai, Tokyo, they all have multiple airport systems. India didn't have that system so far. Therefore, 25 is a big year for Indian aviation. So we welcome very much the opening here in Noida. We welcome the opening in Navi Mumbai. Indigo has committed very much to both new airports. We had the honor to do the sort of first test flights on both airports. They went very well. We will start building without decreasing on the existing airports. So I believe there's room for us to operate from both and not to decrease at the existing airports.
You pick up on this on social media. You pick up on this from customers who sometimes even reach out to us and so on and so forth. You are today the world's most valuable airline. But are you India's most loved airline is the question. And do you aspire to be India's most loved airline?
I would say yes, we are. If I see what we do for the communities in terms of providing air connectivity, in terms of providing services, half of our routes are routes where others are not operating. So we're actually creating that opportunity. When I traveled to, not so long ago, I was in Durgapur and Deoghar. If you see what we are doing there in terms of creating that connectivity, so that's that much appreciated, recognized. So that is, if you want to call it, the hardware of the equation.
But what about the software?
When we look to the software, exactly, I was coming to that. When we look to the software and see what our staff is doing in often very difficult circumstances. You know, if there's a floods at the Chennai airport last year, our people stand there and they deal with all the challenges which are there. It's outside anyone's control what's happening, and yet they deal with it. If I see the work we're doing, we now moved from the Delhi Terminal 2, temporarily closed, everything had to go to Terminal 1. That's a massive operation, and yet they do it. So be it on the ground, be it in the air. You know,
but the user experience, I mean, I'm sure you see the feedback as we do as well, whether it's the quality of seats, whether it's the fact that there's virtually no cushioning on some seats, whether it's food. I mean, how do you respond then to that feedback? Are you using that feedback to try and do something about the user experience?
It would be arrogant not to use it. So yes, we do. Yes, we do that. Looking at. And we monitor our net promoter score and we monitor social media. So we do that and we take that serious. You know, if we have 3.5 lakh customers a day, there's going to be complaints of those customers. And when seats are not correct or when planes are, then of course we're addressing that. And even when staff behavior is not correct, we're addressing that. But by and large, and I think India has a system whereby customer complaints are all registered at the DGCA. It's all monitored very, very well. Our statistics look very, very, very strong there. Yes, there are still cases where people send, and all these complaints are being followed up. And if you put it even on a more international scale, our service stands out. So I think we have the hardware in place, we have the software in place, and with that together, the India's preferred airline is a subtitle we are proudly adding to the name Indigo.
Okay, well, Pieter, I'm going to end by asking you to give me a sort of broad picture of what you're most excited about for 2025. We'll come back to the numbers when you can talk about them, but leave us with a broad picture of what you're most excited about for 2025.
2025 is exciting for the Indian aviation industry because we'll be hosting IATA, and finally we'll have a second airport in Delhi and Mumbai. That is for the industry. For Indigo specifically, we accelerate our internationalization. So we grow to more destinations. We got the wide bodies coming in. We got the XLR coming in. And that will basically be a very important step in the building of our global footprint. And from a customer perspective, we'll have the stretch domestic, we have a loyalty program, and we have a lot of new services on offer.
Well, it's always a pleasure, Pieter. Many, many thanks for joining us, and we look forward to speaking with you after your earnings are out.
After the earnings, we do that. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. Appreciate your time. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this CNBC TV18 special from me and the team on the show. Thanks very much for watching.